Good morning everyone. Happy Independence Day. On behalf of Public Policy Club, I, Abhishek Raj and Richa Agarwal, welcome you all in today's discussion. Today, we'll look at how India has fared in past 70 years. We all know our country has shown tremendous progress on various socio-economic parameters such as literacy rate, per capita income, life expectancy and GDP. Now to discuss the journey till now as well as the challenges which lies ahead, we are privileged to have with us Dr. Charan Singh.
To give a brief about the profile of Dr. Charan Singh sir, he is a full-time visiting faculty of Economics and Social Sciences and former RBI Chair Professor at IIM Bangalore. He did his PhD in Economics from the University of New South Wales, Australia, and was a visiting scholar at the Department of Economics, Harvard University. He is currently serving as Director on the Board of National Housing Bank, Delhi, and NABARD Financial Services Limited, Bangalore. To begin the discussion, sir, I would like to ask, what are your views about India completing its 70 years of independence? Do you think we have reached where we were supposed to reach in these 70 years?
So first of all, I must congratulate the Public Policy Club. I think it's an excellent initiative that you people are taking. And being the elite institution in the country and you being the students here, I think this is so helpful and useful that you have taken this initiative. The second thing is the country is marching towards great heights, and for students of this elite institution to bring issues to the forefront and share with the rest of the country, I think is itself a very congratulatory step. So I'm very happy that you have taken this decision. Finally, there could not have been a better day than today when we are celebrating the 71st anniversary of our independence. So once again, congratulations to you. As far as your question is concerned about 70 years and has India reached where it should have reached, according to me, just imagine the situation in 1947. We had been under alien rule for nearly 800 years. And they had come in as invading armies and they had won over our country. And then we had about 200 to 300 years of another rule where people came in as shopkeepers, as traders, and before we realized it, they were running our country. Now both these forces that came, they made sure that our country, which was the golden sparrow, the richest country of the world, not only rich in terms of monetary terms, gold and money, rich in terms of tradition, rich in terms of culture. We had our own medical system, which is a very important public policy issue. We had our own Gurukul system, which was a very important public policy issue of education. And this country, which has a civilization of 5,000 years recorded history, was robbed and plundered. And so much so, when these, I would say, quote unquote, plundering agencies, when they found that they have taken every pound of our flesh, every drop of our blood, they decided to leave us. Of course, I'm not undermining the sacrifices of the great martyrs. I'm not undermining the strategy of our father of the nation, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. But all I'm trying to tell you is, from the richest country of the world, we became the poorest country of the world. Can you imagine, in 1947, more than 50% of India was below the poverty line. The richest country of the world. It took them 800 years to plunder us, to bleed us. Now you compare yourself from that time. Today, we are a country to be reckoned with. There is no computer system in the world which can work without an Indian mind. Not only that, in our neighborhood, we are just putting satellites on their behalf into the world so that they benefit. Just imagine the journey in 70 years. And that is why I say the journey is not complete. The journey will be complete when we will regain our glory and we will once again be the richest country of the world. which we will be. Nobody made us rich 300 years ago. We made it because of our culture. What is our culture which made us so rich? Hard work. We love hard work. We were down and under, the poorest, and still we mushroomed to become the IT capital of the world. That's our hard work. Second, our brain power. Read through our literature and culture. Forget Shakespeare. Read of our culture and the writings of our sages and saints. Can you have a better writing than Mahabharata and Ramayana? Can you just think of anywhere in the world? Those are our creations. So we have the mind, we have the body, we have the culture. 70 years we have attained so much, right? It is a story from rags. 70 years is riches. Now we'll be the best in the world. Next 70 years. Why do I say this? I have confidence on two issues. One is today we are the youngest country of the world. 66% of our population is absolutely young, bright and raring to go. Right?
Yes.
They are waiting to fly. They have the mind, they have the body. No other country in the world today has that sort of a demography. And why do we have that rich demography? Because again of our culture. We did never go for one-child policy. When the world said children are a headache, Western economists have a theory, there is a cost and a benefit of a child. Indians don't think like that. Indians think if child has to come, he comes with one mouth but two hands and two legs. We never went for one-child policy. The guys who went, they are going to suffer. We who believe in natural forces, we are going to progress. We have the young demography with us. They will succeed. The world will need manpower. India today is the reservoir of manpower. The world will run on Indian minds and Indian muscles. Second thing, look, I believe in karma theory. That's my country, that's my culture, that's my tradition. 100 years ago, 1990, you know what happened in Amritsar by General Dyer.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Jallianwala Bagh story.
Yes.
So much of tyranny, so much of arrogance. And today you know what's happening to Britain 100 years later? They have been thrown out of all countries. Brexit is taking place. They are shrinking from a superpower where the sun never set to a village where the sun probably will never rise. It's a karma theory. 100 years and UK has come back. On the contrary, the tolerant Indians, the patient Indians, the hardworking Indians, just look at the contrast. While UK is shrinking, India is expanding. Because of the karma theory, because of our good deeds, because of our forgiveness nature, we are bound to flourish and we will be the richest again. That day I will tell the journey is completed. If you ask me that question today, I am some way midway. It took 100 years for UK from that arrogance of 1919 to today, where it's shrinking and they don't know what to do now. It'll probably take us another few decades, half a century, when we'll regain that glory. Then I will say the journey is complete.
Indeed, we have come a long way from where we were 70 years back. So, but do you think that democracy is the best engine and the best form of government that we have chosen for ourselves?
That's a very good question, I should say, in a global environment like this, where you have royalty at places and we have the democracy in our country. Means I'm so happy that I'm born in a country where there's democracy. I may not even be ambitious, I may not even try. But there is every possibility that every Indian citizen has a chance to become the Prime Minister of the country,
Yes.
President of the ruling party, President of the country itself, or a Chief Minister. Now, where else in the world can you find such a great country where everybody in the country has an opportunity to rise to the top? Now, this is where I say equality of opportunities. You could be anybody. You could be a scientist and still be the president, or you could be just a tea maker and still be the Prime Minister. This is great equality, and I'm convinced knowledge and wisdom doesn't necessarily come from classrooms. People who have not had an opportunity to come to IIM doesn't mean they do not have the knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge and wisdom to serve the masses, to know the reality sometimes is on the streets rather than institutions of excellence. So to run a country, it's not necessary that I should be Harvard educated or I should come from London School of Economics. I could be from the masses and have an opportunity. If masses are willing to accept me, I think that's great. Now, humans are not perfect. So the systems they create can also never be perfect. So there is always a give and take. There's always scope for improvement. That is why I say the best thing is have democracy, but then have the experts in their areas to come and be as advisors. So you get the mix of both. You rise up from the grassroots, help the others to rise from the grassroots, and you have experts who have global experiences, they come and advise you. So I would say this is the best system. Given our system, given our culture, given our society, and if you look at the global pattern, in countries where they still have the royal dynasties, I don't think they are doing any better. And I have this beautiful example of UK. We are beating them and we will win over it. So that's the best example of democracies versus, yeah, that's the best example. And look how vibrant India is. And we are going to expand and go further. This question will totally become redundant 70 years later when we'll be the richest country of the world. People will say just follow India and India's democracy.
Sir, I agree to your point, whatever you said. Just one thing that comes into my mind is like, isn't it like government is having a lot of control over everything? A tea maker could become a prime minister, a scientist could become a president. But what about the other institutions like RBI, judiciary and all? Is it like government is overpowering all of them?
So I have always had this, and this is a very relevant question you asked because we have just had the episode of Raghuram Rajan. Yes. And then we had the episode of demonetization that everybody said, yes, you know, the Reserve Bank was just a party and they had no say, there is no independence of a central bank in a country. Now in one of the courses that we teach here, we go in depth of what is independence, how do you measure independence. And I've always given a very simple example. Look, if you look 100 years back, there was no central bank. Everything was government. Currency was managed by the government, right? So the central bank are a creation of just 100 years back. I'm not saying there was no central bank. Bank of England came in 1694. Rick's Bank came in 1656. I'm aware of that. But Fed Reserve only came in later. And RBI came only in 1934-35. Fed Reserve somewhere in 1917-18, right? So the point I'm making is these institutions, and these are three distinct institutions. The Reserve Bank is a monetary authority. And when you say a government, we speak about macroeconomic policies, the larger policies for the country. The larger policies of the country work through the fiscal and the monetary. The fiscal is taxation and expenditure, monetary is money supply. They were one about 100 years back. Now they have been bifurcated. I wouldn't call the Reserve Bank as a department, but I would certainly call it as a marriage. Now in a marriage, who's independent? Can the wife say, I'm independent? Or can the husband say, I'm independent? No. At the end of the day, they are responsible for running the family. Now this brings me back to your question of democracy. In democracy, every man on the street is responsible to elect the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister comes through voting. The Prime Minister is accountable to every voter. Now the issue is, if the Prime Minister is accountable to the voter, how much of independence can he give to the monetary authority, which is run by a technocrat and run by the technocrats. So they have a team of technocrats sitting inside. So I think the idea of an independent central bank itself was faulty when it was mooted about 30-40 years ago. Basically, it came from the inflation targeting regime and Paul Walker in the US, and then in New Zealand when inflation targeting it gathered strength. After the global financial crisis, it met its natural fate. There can't be an independent central bank. As far as the other issues that you raised, judiciary, my feeling is, and I come back to the original question, in democracy, who is supreme? The man who's been voted by the masses. He is accountable. And this myth that he is only accountable every 5 years, no more holds. Elections in the country with states, sometimes union territories, and the general election for the Lok Sabha is almost happening every 6-8 months. And with the media that we have, Prime Minister speaks today, he speaks to one constituency, it is interpreted as the whole country. So they are already on trial, they are accountable minute after minute. So they don't even have a 5 years time in their hand. If the elected representatives are the supreme and they are accountable, it is obvious everything has to keep that into account. And therefore, according to me, and I'm sure this will be challenged, however hard you try to say that there will be independent institutions within the country, they cannot be independent of the people. They are serving the people, they are for the people, and they are by the people. And that is represented in the government. It is better one realizes this is a marriage, this is a family, and we are in it together. And the objective is simple, regain the golden glory of India. We all have to work with a single objective in mind.
Sir, if we look at the growth rate of different sectors, we find that manufacturing has grown at 7.9% in the previous year, whereas service is growing at 9%. So what is your view? Why is this uneven growth in different sectors?
Yes, that is, I would say it's a very, very economically based question, and it's a good question because the Make in India comes in here.
Yes.
Right? So it is very strange, and I have my own hypothesis on this. Look, in the global history of growth, there has been a certain pattern which the world thinks is the right pattern. Now, there is logic to it also. When the world had not started becoming highly mechanized or industrial revolution had not taken place, hunting and agriculture was the main activities. So 90% of the population will be in agriculture and allied activities. There will be one Kiryana shop in one village, sometimes not even that. There's a barter system going on, services would be very small. As industrial revolution took place, agriculture became separate, industry became separate, and as urbanization was taking place, as expansion is taking place, trade is starting to take place, and when trade is taking place, services are becoming very prominent. Now what happened in the history of India's economic growth? From 1951 when we launched and the 5-year plans, when we launched our 5-year plans, we obviously had in mind that agriculture has to grow, but by that time we had empirical evidence from advanced countries like US, UK, Canada, where we knew that agriculture will as a proportion shrink and industry will expand. So we had the Mahalanobis model, where we said industry is important, and Nehru said modern temples. He said industry are the modern temples, right? But then in our neighborhood came China. And from 78 they started industrialization in a very big way. And they had resources and they manipulated their resources through their exchange rate manipulations. They were trying to capture the global market and we were their immediate neighbor. And from our porous borders, industrial goods come from there. So our industry suffered. And suddenly what happened? We buckled the global trend. While the global trend was from agriculture, you grew into industry, from industry into services. Because China was sitting next to us, we grew from agriculture straight into services. So services became very important and trading became very important. And of course, we are a country which is urbanizing very fast. Very soon we'll have about, by 2030, we'll have about 600 million people in urban areas. So housing became important. So housing is part of the services in construction services industry. Then what happened? Suddenly there was a regime change. And the Prime Minister came and he said, look, in our country we need to really build industry. Because that's the base. And so the Make in India campaign started and we said we need to regain our industrial base. That's where we can use our young demographic. And we started saying that China has to be cautious. In the meantime, what we knew from 78 that China is manipulating its exchange rate and I would call it modern way of plundering, right? Eating into other countries' industry and destroying their industry by underpricing your products, even subsidizing in a very drastic manner. Look, I can understand if you subsidize something by 4% or 5%, but there are enough anecdotes which tell us that they would subsidize their products by 100%, right? So this is clean manipulation. World woke up, China was told stop doing all this. And we said, yes, they better stop it, but we need to start growing our industry. So in the last 3 years, to a great extent, we have reoriented our policies. Industry is being, at least an attempt is being made to industry to grow further. Even now, after 3 years, in a life of an industry, 3 years is not a very long time. If you look at the investment and the gestation period it takes, 4 to 5 years is normal. But this Prime Minister and this regime had to make substantial changes. They brought in taxation laws and all that. I would have expected industry to go 10 or 12%. But because of this uncertainty which is taking place, when you change course of your policy direction, just imagine your boat is in the ocean and you want to turn it. Yes. When you turn it, obviously you are not going at the same speed as you were going earlier. You slow down and you move your everything, right? It takes time for it to move. So I would think it's simply a matter of adjustment. Sooner or later, industry will start growing faster. If not faster than construction and services, certainly faster than where it has been. The latest data that keeps coming in doesn't show very happy signs, but I think these are only in transition.
As you mentioned in your answer that because of China we had cheap imports coming into India. So I would like to ask whether due to globalization did we get some positive points or was it negative to India?
Just to add to that, we have seen in the steel industry, China has been underpricing its product, the predatory pricing, and it has been flooding Indian market with cheap steel products. So what is your take on that?
So I totally agree with both of you. Look, we are nearly 16% of world population, right? And world population, when we say we are 16%, we mean that we also create demand for world products. It's not for no reason McDonald's, Kellogg's, everybody wants to come to India. So we are serving a very important purpose for them also. But in these 800 years of foreign rule that we had, it's a tragedy. I won't call it a total tragedy because in other countries, if you go and talk to nationals from other countries, you ask them what is your national language? English. And I would, can't be. You don't look English. Okay. You don't look. taken birth in Britain, how can your national language be English? But they have forgotten their national language. It is India. Because of its rich tradition, we still have our native language. Somebody says, what's your national language? Maybe any, but I'm a Tamilian. I'm a Gujarati. I'm a Punjabi, right? At home, when we are very angry, we naturally come back to our language. Right? We don't abuse anybody in English, right? Even if we are in Britain or playing Britain. So the point I'm making is that in many countries, when the Brits went and ruled, the natives lost their language, their food items, their dressing pattern. In India, see, all of us are in typical Indian dresses. I have my turban, you have a kurta, right?
Yes.
If somebody asks me what is your favorite dish, I have traveled across the world, paratha is my favorite. Right? Which is your favorite drink? Lassi is my favorite. Same would be for you, idli or dosa or something like this. So we have neither forgotten our language, nor our food, nor our dressing pattern, which is very, very important. So we have stood our ground. Unfortunately, when you go globalization, you have to be taking care of your interest, and that comes from your self-esteem. If you have a strong self-esteem, wherever you are in the world, you are able to take the best from them and still flourish. See, a mango tree will continue to be a mango tree, you grow it in any country. Right? That is what I think the Indians should do. So what happened with globalization? We almost many times lost our self-esteem. So that is where we need to be guarded. On the other hand, is globalization bad? No. Look at our Indian banking system. Have we not learned from foreign banks?
Yes,
We have, right? We have. So there are certain good things. When we are operating in the global environment, we have to go and operate in their countries. Is it not better that foreign banks come and teach us what is to expect in that country? If we are going to produce goods for foreign brands, is it not necessary we know what their requirements are? So globalization has to be taken with self-esteem. Understand globalization? See how it makes me flourish and blossom further? Adapt it to my circumstances. If there is something good, certainly adopt it. We have been never shy of sharing our thoughts with the West, neither shy of accepting their thoughts and seeing how they are useful for us. So international forums should be used again with that discriminatory thought and cutting edge. Is it useful for me? I don't think we Indians have that self-esteem to believe, and I think the fact is we are the best. Because I'm not talking because I'm Indian, because there is no other civilization which has stood 5,000 years, and we have stood it. And the way we have stood it is not, we did not become a tribal area. We didn't hide behind trees. It was because we exchanged thoughts and we tested our thoughts. We accepted some thoughts which strengthened us. We shunned some thoughts which were weakening us. So I think international forums should be used to the best. Tell the world what we are. Now let me give you two illustrations. 1991 we had our balance of payment crisis. Our indigenous thinkers thought of why did we have this crisis? And they came out with a concept which I teach in my classes. They came out with a concept that if you have to save yourself from this turbulent global world, you need at least foreign exchange reserves to save yourself for 1 year. If this idea of India had been told to the world, Asian crisis would have either not taken place or would not have been so strong that presidents lost their lives and countries went into deep trouble. Our second thought. And you see the test of time. Today, we never got into Asian crisis trouble because we saved ourselves earlier. We never got into the global crisis of 2008 because we saved. We had 17 months of import cover. We built our. It's very simple. You can get hurt. You can rush to the hospital, it takes you a few hours, but all of us have crocin, paracetamol, band-aid at home. First reaction, stop the bleeding, right? That's what is forex traders. It was our idea. Later on, 10 years later, after the Asian crisis, the world discovered and they coined the new term. And it was the same, the knowledge which we had earlier 10 years ago. To take a recent issue, capital account convertibility. We have been trying from rooftop that countries like India need capital account convertibility. We have to save for our population. The world never agreed. And we were not able to convince the world. We were actually not able to share with the world. And today, 30 years later, the world agrees some countries need to have capital control. So I think international forums should be used more to start from a point of strength and say, look, you blokes, what is your history? 200 years? 5,000 years. Listen to me. Right? That's the point of strength from which we need to start. And I tell you, the best way to do it is organize international conferences and meetings in India. Let them come with sleepy eyes, half thinking, and we will tell them, rather than we going there with sleepy eyes and thinking that they are the best. Let us do those conferences in India, start from a point of strength.
That was really inciting. So one last question that I'd like to put forward is, in your opinion, what is the best economic policy that the government has taken in the last 70 years?
70?
Yeah.
Okay. This country has started from the rags. So one single policy could not have brought us to where we are. Right? So we have actually been very, very dynamic in our policies. When we started reforms, say in 51, we needed industry. So our Mahalanobis model and industrialization, modern temples was very relevant. Then times passed. Then a turning point came in 1990. And then we needed financial sector reforms. We needed to reform our banking system. We needed to take account what the government is doing on their fiscal policy. We had to strengthen the monetary policy. So we did all the three together. We did it in a very cautious manner. We did not want to disrupt anything. And we did it in a sequential manner. Lots of discussion, lots of debate, but we worked on all these fronts together. We worked on the fiscal policy, we worked on the monetary policy, we worked on the balance of payments, and of course we worked on industrialization. Times changed. Economy grew at a larger pace than what it was growing earlier. Fast forward, 2017, GST. And GST should not be seen as a standalone event. If you remember, earlier there used to be VAT, value-added tax, and GST per se, the term, we have been talking about it for nearly a decade and a half. So it is just a culmination of a thought process that started long time ago. So if I have to summarize, I would say in a vast country like India and in a dynamic, vibrant country like India, it's not one single policy. I would clearly see three distinct phases. The first one, industrialization. The second one, financial sector reforms of 1991. The third one, the fiscal policy reforms. In 2017, not only brought in GST, just a month earlier, in 2016, we also did monetary policy reform. We set up the monetary policy committee and we said interest rate is a very important thing, can't be just left to one individual, there has to be a committee. So parallelly, we were doing the monetary policy. GST became very, very popular because it affects all of us, but monetary policy reform also went hand in hand. So these are the three turning points in the economic history, I would say, for it.
Now to sum up the entire discussion, and I'd like to have your final comment on where do you see India 20 years from now?
Well, I'm so hopeful, and again not hopeful because I dream big or I think it is because of the young shoulders that I depend on. I have the privilege of teaching at IIM Bangalore. I have the privilege of sometimes going and teaching at IIM Visakhapatnam, and because I'm here I get invited to speak to different places, students. To me, the future is the youth. And the youth is raring to go. They just can't contain themselves. And therefore, next 20 years for me are going to be the turning point. And if your YouTube is going to reach masses, I want to tell them something. You know, we Indians have stood the test of time for 5,000 years. Do you think we stood the test of time without challenges? Challenges are part of life. And now the challenges, the global crown is ready to be taken by someone else. UK lost it in 1900, but by 1947, after the Second World War, the Americans threw their hat and became the superpower. America is also losing out. Now the turn is of Asia, and there are two countries vying for it, China and India. This is the turning point. 20 years it will be decided. For next 70 years, who will wear the crown? When I see young girls wearing the world crown, most beautiful women, I say, well, they have to be prepared to be the most powerful nation. That thing the youth has to take. That challenge the youth has to take. And I wish through your YouTube, if every child in the country, what does he do and how does he do so that India's rupee is the international currency which replaces the US dollar, which had replaced the pound sterling. That chance is open. And now it is for us to do and die and get it. So hopeful that I am, I think my job as a professor is to enthuse the students that don't let this opportunity slip. It comes once in a century. Grab it, prepare for it, and accept it. And then will be your first question. Where will we be? From 20 years, international currency of the world. Next thousands of years, the superpower of the world.
Sir, the discussion was very insightful. We got a very interesting things to know about our past, about our future, and what we can expect. So that was really very helpful for us. Thank you, sir, for gracing us with your presence here. Thanks a lot.